Morning, Laura.
Good morning. How's it going?
I'm doing wonderful. It's been a busy week, but a very exciting one. How have you been?
Same here. I don't know what it is, but February's been flying. There's been lots going on. I feel like everyone's in very much work mode, so it's been busy but good. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's been fun too, inspired by our conversation over the past couple of weeks and that amazing new LinkedIn report. I've been trying to get a lot more active on LinkedIn in the past week or so and posting more content. So it's been a fun journey and an exciting sort of step here. I'm looking forward to sharing all the great things that come across our desk every day with everyone out there as well too. On that note, tons of exciting updates to dive into here today, and so some very interesting ones too. When I saw these, based on some of the updates, but then the context around them too. So to kick it off, Threads expanding save posts to all users. What was so interesting about this and reading it, Adam Mansouri has been very public as they've been building Threads and sharing his thoughts and opinions. Actually shared that he doesn't see this driving better user adoption or driving value for the users from the Threads platform perspective, which really shocks me because I feel like this is such a core metric from a social perspective and such a valuable tool as well. We often talk about sort of engagement metrics across social, and I think saves is sort of that hidden engagement metric that doesn't pop up as much, where it's not that necessarily you're sharing it around with other people, but it's still a way that people are interacting with it. They're saying this is important content, I want to come back to it. Personally, like with Instagram myself, I find I save content all the time when I see an interesting recipe or something. I'm like, oh, I want to come back and see this, or maybe it's a restaurant, or maybe it's a place to go travel. So I've been finding I've actually been using the save feature a lot more than I have been other features on social. But curious to get your thoughts, Laura.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting because I think like out of any sort of engagement or interaction, saves is a really big one, right? It shows that like, hey, I like this so much that I want to re-reference it later. So I hear you totally, and I was kind of surprised too that maybe some of these features might not help with usage, according to Adam, but I think at the end of the day, folks at these social networks have a lot of data and they've got a lot of insight. So it makes you wonder what's going on behind the scenes. What do they know that we don't? So definitely really interesting to see, like, maybe one day what they're working on to help boost that usage. But in the meantime, really nice to get access to some of these features to help drive like more interaction within the app for folks that are spending time there, and then maybe they've got other tactics under their belt to help get new users into the platform.
Yeah, it's very interesting too. Like I feel like saves is a great type of engagement metric for people who aren't actively posting or creating content or leaving comments, but can still sort of engage in that content in some way. And what I've noticed with Twitter and X more recently is that they're starting to show things like save counts as part of those metrics under posts as well too. So you're seeing the impact of that, and like some posts may have low relative engagement, but really high saves on that front, and still shows that's a high value post overall. Continuing along here, another very interesting update from the Meta side of things. Meta expanding their access to the creator marketplace to more countries. So this was US only first, and now expanding to countries like Canada and other countries across the world. This one also quite interesting because there's been a huge rise in the influencer market over these past few years, with influencers being a key channel to connect with communities, drive relationships, help businesses grow as well too. There's been a lot of companies that have spun up around the influencer marketing space, companies like Upfluence, who we partner with here at Hootsuite, and other dedicated platforms that really make it easy to manage those relationships. And with Meta offering direct access to a lot of these creators, it creates an interesting dynamic. But curious to get your thoughts, Laura.
Yeah, I think it's really, really cool, especially because, some of these brands will get access to like filter through. I believe they're using maybe AI, but there'll be features set up so that they can filter through and find creators that match really well with their brand or like things that they want to be promoting. But it is interesting, like there are so many like PR agencies and influencer related companies that help sort of match businesses with different creators for some of these partnerships and opportunities. So it makes you sort of hopeful for them that they're still able to, of course, continue on. I think at the end of the day, like, you know, both will still very much exist. I think if you have maybe internal teams that maybe work on influencer sourcing and like finding partnerships, then maybe this will be a helpful tool for them. But not every company has access to, you know, someone internally that has the time and the resource to go in and do a lot of influencer, you know, management and sourcing, because it's a full-time job in and of itself. So I can see a lot of these sort of PR companies and whatnot and influencer companies still being very, very successful, but kind of cool to see, you know, Meta prioritizing this because there are so many creators within those platforms, especially Instagram. So being able to make it really easy for brands to go in and find some creators to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think of this as like a great opportunity for those SMBs, those companies that maybe the local flower shop that wants to get out more in the community, that can engage with creators in a more simple, streamlined way as well too. So we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on this. I'm sure Meta will continue to expand this out across the globe, bringing in more creators and more businesses to use these tools. And if you are using it, definitely leave some comments below. Let us know your experience. Continuing on here, one last key update to talk about as YouTube starts to expand some of its creator tools across its mobile app out there. What was interesting about this story for me is I've seen some other posts talking about this too, where YouTube's starting to really lean into shorts, trying to compete more with sort of the TikTok side of things. YouTube is the global giant from a social media management platform. It's sort of the elephant in the room. But I think I saw there's like 2 billion or like 3 billion people across the world use YouTube on a monthly basis, or it's something along those lines. But it truly is one of the giants. And with them coming in to try and take over some of the different types of content, it's interesting to see that. In the interview we talked about last week too, they were talking about how Shorts is one of the top performing sort of products within YouTube over these past couple of years. So no surprise that they're making a lot of investment in that. Curious to get your thoughts though, Laura.
Yeah, you know what? Anytime a platform can bring in better sort of creation tools, it makes it, you know, super fun to play around with and maybe streamline some of those workflows a little bit there too. So definitely exciting to see. I think if I remember correctly, it became available yesterday for more locations. So, you know, could be a good opportunity to go in and test some of those out, especially if you're creating YouTube Shorts. And I think that's really where this will shine. Like a lot of people will likely for that long form YouTube content still sort of edit maybe in their video editing software and then upload it to the platform, especially for longer form. But this would be really good for some of those shorts, definitely. So I don't know, kind of cool to see it. Definitely makes sense to have it in the app, but yeah, I'm excited to maybe test it out.
Yeah. And I will say too, reading the update, they did call out that it is only available for Android only at this stage, which is quite interesting because it
Right.
does really limit a lot of the usability there. So we'll see what happens with that. I feel like in today's era, iPhone is the dominant player in a lot of regions. So to limit yourself from the big audience there may hinder some of the efforts, but we'll keep a close eye.
Yeah.
Onto the great question of the day. This came up in some conversations I was having this week with some of our customers around how to really get involved in trends that extend beyond your specific industry. And I know we've had like the Super Bowl recently. We've had a lot of other events going on. And it's often an interesting challenge from a social media manager's perspective where you want to build that audience, engage with people in your very specific niche, but for example, sometimes they can get very technical, they can get very specific, and it's nice to be able to relate to people just in their daily lives outside of the work job as well too. So when you think about this type of content, whether it's jumping in on trends that are happening, trying to be able to create more human content in sort of a day-to-day basis, any tips, any advice, Laura, for the people listening?
Yeah, I think sort of we've chatted about it before, but really just making sure when you're jumping on a trend that it makes sense to you. to jump in on it. So you don't necessarily need to dive into everything, but finding a way to make it authentic to you. Like one of my favorite examples that, Hootsuite does a fair amount as well is like when there's these different award shows, right? Like, we'll jump on some of those trending moments and, put some captions on it, make it almost like a bit of a meme. And so it's a fun way to incorporate some of these events that, aren't even in our industry. It's like, movies and TV and music and all of that. But you're finding a way to tie it back and, in our case, creating like social media manager memes with some of the photos from these events. So I think like jumping on trends, even if it's like a TikTok audio, finding a way to do it that's authentic to you. And that's usually where success comes because, people love seeing that trending content done in a different way. And especially if they follow you as a business, then, they're aligned with your mission, they like your products, they like your services. And so it adds that layer of like humor when you can jump in on some of these trends in a way that these folks, get, and maybe it's relatable to them as well.
Absolutely. And I think even beyond just creating content, engaging, leaving comments in those types
Yeah.
of moments as well too is a great way to jump into the conversation without necessarily having to plant your flag as a brand from like whatever perspective there. So lots of different ways to approach it. I think one of the things we always talk about with this though that's so important is really doing active listening, both with your own audience and then with what's going on across the market since things are changing so much. But the more you can keep a pulse on what's going on there, but also be able to get feedback in terms of your audience, in terms of what they enjoy seeing on social, what other accounts they follow, what types of trends or hobbies they have outside, can really help influence your content strategy overall. Wonderful.
Amazing.
On that note, I think a great place to end this week. Again, lots in the air and some very exciting updates coming from the Hootsuite world as well too. So we encourage everyone to keep their ear to the ground over the next few days here. But yeah, looking forward to the rest of the week here, Laura, and wishing you and everyone else a wonderful week as well too.
Amazing. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.